Hi, my name is Sarah PR, and if you've never met me, you've probably seen my mother, Courtney Reed. She preaches the occasional Sunday, whether in person or online. I've been a member at All Saints for my entire life, and while my attendance has not been the best in recent years, All Saints will always have a special place in my heart, and I consider it a forever home. Now I know, much like the rest of you, when I walked out the doors of Lane Tech last year, I thought that we would all be returning. I thought that we would be out for 2 weeks and we would come back in, and that would be the end of it. We know that did not happen. We went from in-person learning to no school at all to struggling to online learn. We went from in the pews to on a laptop. And we went from seeing friends to family dinners and forced family games. I will always have the memory of my mom trying to film church, where I am right now, and the rest of us standing behind the screen grudgingly, rehearsing line after line after line as she took clip and clip and clip to get the perfect one, to get the perfect clip for church. We did this pretty much every Sunday so that we could be her congregation. And while this has been a great time of struggle and of a lot of learning, personally and in school, well, struggling in school, it has also been a great time of growth, personally, for the world, for everyone. And the fact that despite having to do everything behind screens, that we still were able to protest for women's rights, for Black Lives Matter, for LGBTQ plus rights, is truly amazing. And we also did that as a congregation. We all, despite being separated and socially distanced and having to wear masks to protect ourselves from one another, we were able to come together as a community. And that's one of the positive things I see from this, that despite all of our individual struggles, all of the struggles in the world, and putting it all behind a screen, that we were still able to progress, and All Saints was still a family and still a home to me. I have forged long-lasting friendships with many of my peers at All Saints that have made it through Corona, that will continue to, even as we all depart from college. And while I know this was a long year for everyone, it's a time of growth, and we will all come out of it stronger than we were before, a stronger community, a stronger individual. And I think it's important that we look back on these positive aspects as we face the upcoming year of school and returning to normalcy.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace.
And my name is Peter. And we just graduated from Lane Tech College Prep High School at Soldier Field.
And we have been at All Saints for almost 18 years.
Our whole lives.
When we were told we were giving a short reflection on this past year, a million ideas popped in our heads.
After all, there is a lot to talk about.
Everyone is challenged in ways nobody ever thought were going to happen.
From being challenged financially to mentally to the Wi-Fi going out, we all struggled in one way or another.
We were all going through a storm, and we found ways to calm it.
The pandemic started for us, then juniors in high school, thinking,
2 weeks off of school with no homework?
awesome!
But slowly shifted to,
School canceled for the entire year? I just made varsity lacrosse.
for us, this meant spending most of our time with family.
Maybe too much time with family. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Being twins who are forced to be with 24/7, we had our arguments.
And you still take my face wash out of the shower.
At least I clean my room.
Whatever.
But through all of this, together we learned to appreciate each other.
Sometimes.
Regardless, we maneuvered our way through the storm that was this past year.
And although we learned to love spending time with each other, that also meant not seeing friends or family for months.
Social distancing turned into complete isolation.
This took a toll on our mental health.
While I could still hang out FaceTime with my friends,
Or I could play video games with them.
we were still stuck inside, separate from the outside world.
It just wasn't the same.
But we had to learn to love those FaceTime calls.
And Zoom calls with distant relatives.
Or when we weren't playing Scrabble or Wii Sports, of course.
You mean when I wasn't beating you in Scrabble or Wii Sports?
You mean when we both were losing to Mom and Dad in Scrabble and Wii Sports?
Fair enough.
Our senior year started with uncertainty.
A feeling I know everyone in this room is familiar with.
We began to spend 7 hours a day in our bedrooms on our computer screens.
We didn't know if our internet could handle 4 Google Meets at once, since our parents were teaching downstairs.
It barely worked. However, as the year progressed, perspective became key to our happiness.
While we were bummed we didn't have a normal senior experience, we were grateful that we were still safe and healthy.
We found joy in simpler things that we had been taking for granted, like going outside during our lunch period.
For me, I was still thankful to have a 16-inch softball and lacrosse season. Both sports I didn't think I was going to play again.
And I was still able to take theater and tap dance lessons on Zoom.
Every Saturday morning it sounded like construction was being done in our basement. It was just Grace tap dancing to Mary Poppins songs.
Don't act like you didn't bounce lacrosse balls off the wall in our house.
Today, one of the readings was about David and Goliath. The story of David and Goliath is one of the most well-known tales from the Bible. David, a young boy, defeated the giant Goliath. This is an inspiring story of how the underdog can defeat someone much bigger than him against the odds.
In many ways, we all fought a war like David did during this past year. We were all David in our own way, fighting against a force much bigger than all of us. There was a lot of loss. We lost part of our junior year and most of our senior year.
We didn't see our friends in person for months, missed homecoming, dances, international days, in-person theater productions. But we also learned to put life in perspective. We were lucky. We had our health and our family.
We were able to hang out with friends in our backyard, even if it was 20 degrees out.
We learned to be creative with our time, including performing in the critically acclaimed virtual Christmas pageant, and found new ways to connect and have fun, like dancing in the living room to Don't Stop Believing instead of in the church.
We learned to breathe and notice the smaller things. We gained a pandemic dog. We did virtual college tours, were accepted and committed to schools.
I'm going to the University of Illinois.
And I'm going to Carthage College. Even during a pandemic, life goes on. We found a new path to take to our next chapter.
Most importantly, we are here. We continue to think about the 4 million people who lost their lives to COVID-19.
We know we are lucky. Yes, we lost most of our senior year.
But we have learned to appreciate, celebrate, and find joy.
Yesterday, when I read the story of David and Goliath, my 2 initial takeaways were, 1, this story is full of violence, and 2, the imagery seems a bit outdated. It was difficult to see how it touches on our lives today, especially since people aren't sending children out to fight giants and save the day. I mean, at least not here at All Saints. But when I look a little closer, I see a story about faith holding us up to be bigger than your fears and about the importance of being true to yourself. I'm facing my own Goliath these days, as are my fellow seniors. I've got the unknown of moving away from home, starting at college, far away, where we don't know anyone. Like David, I feel a little unprepared and out of place, maybe a little short compared to the giant. But even though I feel unprepared on the surface, when I take a moment to look at all the things I've done and the people I've watched and learned from at All Saints, I know there's no way I won't be all right. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that you have to be true to yourself in order to serve others. Before facing Goliath, David is given the king's armor. This really fancy helmet and sword. He's got all these gadgets. He's ready to go. He's looking super swanky. He's about ready to march onto the battlefield. But there's a problem. It's not his own armor. It's the king's armor. It doesn't fit him. He can't walk. He can't move. He can't function. There's no way he's going to be able to take Goliath down. So instead of doing what the king thinks he needs, David's true to himself. He takes off the armor. He grabs his trusty slingshot and a few stones. If he hadn't trusted who he was, he wouldn't have been able to serve the king. There's no way he would have been able to defeat Goliath. And that's sort of some of the lessons that you learn growing in faith at All Saints. All Saints teaches you about the power of kindness. Each Sunday, you see how people support one another, sharing their excitement when good things happen, and propping others up when things get hard. But you also learn, particularly in youth group, that it's important to take care of yourself, to be good to yourself in order to be good to others. So, as we think beyond the war and the violence in this old Bible story, let's consider how faith can help us be bigger than our own fears. And maybe most important, how we can face our fears as ourselves, remembering that we are wonderfully and perfectly made in the image of God.